special guest. I've got Jonathan Johnson of Deny.
I guess if we're all going to be locked up like I am on the beach with Oz, and he ended up playing with us. Less is more. Don't overthink it. Don't overdo it. He sent me his tracks from Vegas. I got him a deal for me, as a teenager. So that was kind of my call. I was way into Striper. I used to air band to the Yellow and Black. It was touring and making records with them.
Hi, I'm Lee at Iridium, and I got with me today a special guest. I've got Jonathan Johnson of Deny the Fallen. How you doing, mate?
I am doing well. It's nice to be called special.
Now, listen, talk me through your background of your behind you. I'm talking about, mate. Your little.
Oh, my background. Yeah. So I'm currently sitting on a beach in Mexico. No, actually, I put this background scene up because this actually looks like where I'm at right now. I'm in my apartment in Mexico. My wife and I are down here for several months. I've been working on the album and doing some writing and that kind of stuff. But the current situation in the small fishing village, we're about 15, 20 kilometers outside of Cancun. So the beaches look a lot like that here right now. So anyway, I threw that up in honor of my current location. And plus too, there's so many people freezing their rears off right now. It might make them feel warmer.
Me included, mate. I was out on the beach.
Yeah.
I was
just
out
absorb the sun from my screen.
Yeah. I took the dog out and it was actually like wind and rain in my face. So it looks lovely. And just to let you know, I mean, even though that's a lovely background, you sent me a couple of pictures, didn't you, lately, because of recording in Mexico, and they're actually better. They're better than that. His background. So there you go.
Yeah.
I'm jealous. Anyway. So
it's beautiful here.
It looks gorgeous, mate. We're here to talk about, obviously, your new album is the main thing I want to talk about, the Deny the Fallen second album. But for anyone who don't know, mate, just give us a little bit of background on the band members and how you guys got together. A little bit of history.
Right. So basically I wanted to do something different. So I went to the homeless camp and I found these guys that all formerly had careers and where anybody would probably previously know me from is from Sacred Warrior. I had another band called Zeal that almost broke through into the mainstream. We were offered major label deals and all that. And because of some family reasons and a divorce that I went through back in the early 2000s, I kind of had to pull away from that. But everybody would probably remember my previous work with Sacred Warrior. And Rey Parra, the singer for Sacred Warrior, who's well known for his awesome vocal range and kind of Queensryche-esque, Dio-esque kind of delivery. Even though he has his own personality, obviously, in his voice, that's kind of the only way to describe Ray's work with Sacred Warrior. Yeah. We were together, and during the era of their Wicked Generation album, I joined them while they were finishing that record. So I was actually in the studio with them while that album was being finished, but I didn't play on it. I was preparing for the tour, and so I did the whole Wicked Generation tour, and then we wrote and produced the Obsessions album, which most people believe that to be their biggest and best album. Yeah. Actually, I think it got voted as the number 7 all-time greatest Christian metal album, by some press people and stuff. So that was kind of cool. But I was only 19 years old at the time, so I got the opportunity to play in a band that I was a fan of, as a teenager, and got the gig with them, which was amazing. And all the guys in the band obviously were a bit older than I were, and they'd, been doing it for a while at a high level. At the time that I joined the band, they were probably one of the top 3 or 4 Christian rock metal bands, on the planet at the time. So it was a big deal for me, as a teenager. So that was kind of my college. You know, it was touring and making records with them. But anyway, Ray and I, you know, we were friends before I joined Sacred Warrior. And he was the reason I ended up in the band, because he was a fan of my band Zeal, which was a very kind of progressive Queensryche-esque type of band at the time too. And we just, you know, stayed friends over the years. I was from Illinois, which, you know, Sacred Warrior is based out of Chicago, so we were in the same state. And lo and behold, when they wanted to bring on a second guitar player, Ray started the full court press on me to get me to come and audition. And I was happy in my band situation, and, you know, all my heart was in that, but he just kept on. Well, I finally agreed. I thought it would be fun just to play with him. You know, I'm like, you know what, I'll come up there and jam with you guys one time, you know, just to say I jammed with you guys and just for the fun of it, because I was a fan, right?
Yeah.
So I went up and auditioned over a weekend and played 1.5 songs with them, and they offered me a gig on the spot. And I'm like, whoa, I didn't expect this to happen. So I left them waiting for like 2 or 3 weeks while I molded over and tried to figure out, you know, whether it was what I wanted to do. And yeah, I finally decided to, you know, to pull the trigger and do it. And the rest is kind of history. But Ray and I's relationship was really established during that time. And after I left Sacred Warrior a year and a half later, the band pretty much dismantled for, you know, a short period of years. And Ray and I just, you know, we stayed in contact and always talked about doing something together. You know, it just kept coming back up. And every couple of years we'd end up on the phone talking about the what if, you know, we need to do something together, man. You know, because we just always had a chemistry. And this went on for 20 years or whatever. And finally, you know, we finally just said, you know what, let's just, you know, stop the crap and let's just make this happen. Let's just do whatever it takes to make this happen. And we just had a deep conversation about what we wanted to do. And Ray wanted to do something very modern. He felt that he was kind of pigeonholed into, everybody thought he sounded like Jeff Tate, you know, and he said, that's not the only thing that I sing. And I knew that because I'd heard him sing in church and in different venues. I heard him sing cover songs, karaoke, and, you know, different things like that. So I knew that Ray could sing anything. He's just got one of those voices. Yeah. And long story short, he said that, you know, he wanted to do something very modern and unique. And, but also my point was I wanted to do something that literally pays homage to where we came from.
Yeah.
That the old school fans would still love it, and all the new modern metal fans would love it. You got my sense. You won't reload. You're tracking me, chasing me like a weirdo. You're not my friend. No, you'll break down. You're tracking me, chasing me like a weirdo. And I literally wanted to pay homage to every style and genre of metal. I wanted to touch on it. I wanted to throw it all into the soup and see where it came out, you know? And so for about 4 years, we just, you know, I wrote and kind of crafted and designed a sound, kept going back to him saying, okay, try this, try that, until we finally kind of had that Deny the Fallen sound, which is extremely unique. And it does exactly what we set out to do.
Oh yeah. I mean, obviously it's sort of a good thing, I suppose. You've been mulling over for 20 years.
Had a lot of time to think.
And that's where all those influences are coming from. You know, if you had probably done something all them years ago, it wouldn't have been anything like Deny the Fallen. It
would have been Sacred Warrior.
Yeah, exactly. And what you get, I mean, if anyone hasn't heard the debut album, I reviewed it on this channel.
Excuse me.
Well, probably not long after I started the channel, and reviewed the album. And to tell you the truth, it's received some great reviews, you know, across the board. I haven't heard anything negative about the album at all, and that's unusual in this time.
Especially when you do something different.
Yeah,
you usually get hammered for it.
And I think that's why it's probably received all those great reviews. I mean, I suppose sometimes now when you try and reinvent the past, you get hammered for that. So you can't win sometimes, but
Right.
You know, it's received a load of great reviews, and I can see why. And like you said, there's a lot of influences. Your past is in there as well, from Sacred Warrior. You can hear that classic metal sound, you know, but then again, you could hear more modernized sound as well, a bit thrashy at times, which I love. I mean, I mentioned Pantera, that sort of real driving rhythm, groove metal, if you like, sort of sound as well within that album, which is great. I mean, man, it's a great album. I mean,
Thank you.
You must be really proud of it. And I want to talk about the new album. What from that album to this one? I mean, I don't know how far you are into the recording, but what are the main differences? What are we going to expect?
Well, honestly, like we don't want to reinvent the wheel with it, because I think we developed kind of a sound, and in this day and age, to develop something that's unique is very rare. To develop a sound that's unique to you, because let's face it, most of the new bands coming out sound like versions of other bands, and that's kind of been the knock on Christian music, Christian metal, especially. A lot of these bands, especially from the classic era of Christian metal, there was the White Cross, which was the Christian Rat, Sacred Warrior, which was the Christian Queensryche, you had Barren Cross, which was the Christian Iron Maiden, so there wasn't a whole lot of, originality, in that first wave. Then you had bands like, Deliverance and Vengeance come out, that were extremely original in how they were, what they did. But that's kind of been the knock on Christian metal over the years.
Yeah.
And my feeling has always been, and one of the things Ray accuses me of constantly, and he said, there's something different about the way that you write, and that when you write, it doesn't sound Christian. And a lot of Christian metal has that Christian metal sound, not to put anything down, but there is a different quality level on some of it. There's a different, it just doesn't quite get there sometimes. And, my thing is I've always, I don't really see a division between the sacred and the secular. I don't do that. No. There's either good or bad to me. I don't think that there's Christian music, just like there's not like Christian plumbers or painters. There's music that's either good or there's music that's bad, whether that's lyrical or musical, So I don't do that, and I don't limit myself on what I write topically.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like, we came up with something original that had a very secular sound to it, for lack of a better way of putting it. It didn't sound like Christian metal. Yeah. And I wanted to take that about 10 steps further with production quality. I think that there was so much learned, because that album, I produced the album. There was so much learned on the way of making that record, and then, making some of the other projects I've done since then. And, the technology's come so far, and, just educating myself on the new technologies and the new, applications and things like that are available, which are incredible. So I really feel like the quality, the production quality is going to be several steps above what the first album was. And just, kind of taking the launch pad of that first record and just, taking it 10 steps further, just the stuff that we did well, that really resonated, really vamping on that, hitting those areas harder. I think one thing that's kind of, I don't want to say unique to the band, but in the melodic music sector, you don't often think of it as riff bands.
Yeah.
A lot of times. And DTF, Deny the Fallen, is very much a riff band. Like, the whole songs are based around these riffs that in and of themselves, you want to sing the riff, and that's the thing that's magical about bands like, Pantera or Megadeth. Like, you get that riff and you just, you get caught singing the riff. And if you can hook them with the riff before you ever put these strong melodies and ideas behind it, you've got you're deeply sunk into them. They're not, not going to get away from you. And so we start out with that, and then try to come up with really, really progressive, heavy rhythms. And if you get somebody singing the rhythm and the beat, you've also got a hook, so we wanted every aspect of it to have a hook in it, so that's kind of what we focused on, and we're really, really expanding on that with this new stuff.
You did send me a couple of little samples of stuff you've been working on, and I noticed the difference straight away. I mean, what I noticed, because I'm a real melody guy, as you know, and I like melodic music, and you're totally right. When it comes to melody, it can be in a real heavy band can have melody, I've probably got into more heavier music lately, the likes of Testament and stuff that I never used to listen
I love
to.
Testament.
And I find it really melodic, and in a different way. But and I find that your newer stuff has more melody as well than your debut album, and that hit me straight away. I found that the debut album had a lot of melody in it, but a lot of it creeped up on you slowly after repeated listens. A couple of listens of your newer tracks, and it felt a lot more melodic. We're not talking, going into like 80s style, but it's still the heaviness, but the melody is even more, which is, that's hard to do, to get that melody there but with the heaviness still. So it's brilliant.
Yeah, for me, like I've always had this rule of thumb, less is more. So don't overthink it. And if it doesn't make your head bob and doesn't make you sing along, you failed. It doesn't matter how heavy. I mean, you could be deicide heavy, and if you don't make somebody's head bob, if you don't capture them with a groove, and you don't make them want to sing along to something, it doesn't matter if they're growling or what. If it doesn't make you want to do it, you failed, because literally that's what music's about.
Oh, without that. I'm really glad. Just to go back a little bit, what you said really struck me earlier. You said about a lot of people don't realise that about Christian music, what sorts of styles there are. To tell you the truth, myself, I was exactly the same, probably not so long ago, like before I started this channel. For me, Christian music, the first band that everyone thinks of is Striper. And
me too.
Most people who are not, don't even venture into the Christian side, metal side. That's what, and I mean, me included, thought it was all Striper, bands like that, Joshua, Shout in the 80s, that sort of sound was, and I was exactly the same. I didn't realise there was all these genres of Christian music, and it's opened up a lot for me as well. So, mad.
It's grown over the years. I think right now, Christian metal is in its lowest state, since I've been involved in the genre. Like I said, I'm not one that likes the label so much, not because, I want to be taken seriously by the secular community or whatever. It's not about that. It's music's music.
Yeah, I agree.
Music is music. And the way that I see music is a vehicle, and music that has lyrics to it, I see it as a capsule that's holding a message. It's carrying a message in it. And if you can get that capsule to be enticing enough that it opens people's souls and their minds up to what's in it, that's your job as a musician.
And it's sad. And it's sad all these people that are missing out from both sides. So people that won't even go near Christian music, and Christian, people into Christian music won't go the other side either, and missing out on so much, and that's why I've always opened up to, these other bands in the Christian side, because I just think it just sounds great to me. So, if it's good music, it's good music. Totally agree. And, you kind of got to give credit where credit's due. And, for me, like, I've been in this business for a long time. And when I left Sacred Warrior, I restarted my band Zeal, and Zeal literally almost got signed to Warner, Universal. We had some very powerful friends in the industry, to the point where when we started doing our demos for Universal, Brett Hessla, the singer for the band Dark New Day, Virgos Merlot, he was the bass player in Creed. Highly successful musician.
even though he was the bass player in Creed, he's one of my favorite rock singers ever. I mean, the guy's voice is just stellar. But he became a good friend. He was a huge fan of our band, pursued us about producing us and helping us get a deal. And we ended up in his studio with him and his engineer, Justin Thomas, producing, you know, our demos and stuff, and which, you know, came out stellar. But at the time, Warner said that Zeal was going to be America's next big radio rock band. You know, we were in that arena rock kind of genre, and we were on their watch list as the #1 unsigned band in America at the time. And like I said, because of some family things, I had to decide whether to be a full-time dad or to be a rock star. And there was never a question in my mind. You know, I was going to be dad first. So I kind of walked away from it for a season, and Nickelback took that slot. So yeah, put it this way, we had bands like Shinedown opening for us, you know, when we were touring around Florida and stuff at the time, right before they exploded. So things were going our way, and you know, so made a lot of friends in the industry, have a lot of very famous secular musician friends, very, very close with the guys in Seven Dust. Clint Lowry lived in Louisville, Kentucky, where we're based out of for several years. His wife was from there, and we got close and collaborated on a couple things. He put some riffs on some old music that we did and stuff. And we knew him. We met him back when he was in Still Rain before Seven Dust became a thing. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So I've got a lot of friends in and around the industry. So, you know, bands like Seven Dust, man, I think Seven Dust, they're geniuses at exactly what we were talking about before. Yeah. That super heavy riffing, they can be as heavy as they want to be, but melodic as heck, man. I mean, they just can knock the melody out of the park, because Lejean is an amazing singer, very unique guy. So, but I've always loved those tweener bands that didn't really fit, you know, like originally it was King's X for me, man. I was an immense King's X fan. I mean, I can't tell you how much they influenced me, you know, early on. But I've always liked those bands that were really hard to classify, that kind of changed music a bit. You know, to a certain extent, you know, Led Zeppelin was one of those bands. They didn't fit, you know, and they kind of recreated the wheel a bit. Yeah. But, you know, I kind of feel that way about Seven Dust some. You know, they didn't fit. You know, they came up with this super percussive rhythm riffing type of sound that everybody ended up copying. You know, you got the Godsmacks and you know, the Disturbs, and, you know, and I've met all these people. You know, we were playing in circles with all these guys, you know, when they were first coming up and stuff. And I watched these bands open for Seven Dust, all of them kind of stealing their style and going platinum one after the other, while Seven Dust kind of perpetually stayed making gold records. And I don't know that didn't have to do with, you know, the fact that, you know, they got an African-American singer, you know, that maybe didn't resonate with everybody, you know, because he was very soulful and different. But man, I got to give those guys credit, because they really did, you know, develop a cool sound, you know. But yeah, so we've got a lot of friends kind of in those circles and stuff.
Funny enough, they're not Seven Dust. I've heard them, but they're not. It's a bit strange in the UK and the US, differences in the bands and who's big over there and who isn't. You know, we've got Alter Bridge over here that are massive, you know, but Alter Bridge, obviously you know them, but out of Creed.
Right, yeah.
But never over in the US. It's a bit strange, isn't it, how the differences come across. You know, the bands make it big there, but not here, and vice versa. But no, I mean, I want to talk about production on the new record, mate. Okay. So you did briefly mention like new technology and stuff like that. So are you handling all the production on this album?
Yes, sir.
Everything, and the mixing, everything.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I love the sound of the first album, but you being handling the second record as well, there's going to be quite a few changes on this one, I believe.
Well, like I said, I mean, there's so much that was learned off of that first album. I grew up old school. You know, we came up, you got the knobs and dials and, you know, all the outboard gear, outboard compressors and preamps and tube preamps and all that kind of stuff, the racks of gear that you used to have, and then everything changed to digital overnight. You know, so now you got digital recording, and then it goes from digital tape, like ADATs and things like that, to completely computer-based recording. So I had to learn a whole new language, man. It was like learning Chinese. So I had to completely retrain myself, reteach myself on how to use everything. And I had done it several times. We had been in the studio and used Pro Tools and all that stuff. And I've always been kind of a note taker. Even when I was in Sacred Warrior, I took a notepad into the studio and watched the producers and engineers. And I'm like, I want to do that. I can do that, you know? So as a 19-year-old, like I said, it was my college. Well, when the whole digital thing kicked in, we're in the studio recording with Pro Tools and all that. And I've got other producers and engineers. So I'm taking notes. I'm asking questions. I probably drove them crazy. I was asking so many questions. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? So then it comes time for me to start endeavoring to do it myself. So I took on some projects and stuff and started working with, Cubase and different things and just kind of learning the language, the format of recording digitally. And once I kind of got over that mental barrier of thinking tape, tape and knobs to, dealing with the computer, once it clicked, everything started working from that point on. And then it wasn't long after that we made the first album. So that was my first shot at really going full force production, using all the bells and whistles and everything that were available at that time. And stuff. And it was a lot of fun. And I learned so much doing it. And I have a lot of producer friends. Jimmy Brown from Deliverance is a good friend. And, I'll send stuff to him and pick his brain, ask him questions. And so I've always kind of been that way. But so much has been learned. And there's so many new things, man. Like, I'm not even using like live amplification on recordings anymore. I can achieve better guitar tones with some of these new, digital modeling softwares and stuff now. Like I could I'll give you an example. Like if I wanted design one amp to be in the left speaker and design a completely different one in the right speaker, I can record something that I like and in the mix be like, you know what? I don't like that so much. I'm going to change it. Yeah, man, back in the day, you couldn't do that. Once you committed it to tape, it was stuck. But now, like, I can continue to tweak all the way until it's committed to a final mix.
Yeah. I mean, I actually think production now, I think it went through a bit of, on a lot of bands that I'm listening to even now, I think it went through a bit of a rough stage. I mean, I know that, the tools you've got now to make an album are so different than they were back in the 80s and 90s.
Oh my gosh.
But I think some of the production was, a few years ago, even sometimes now on these records, it's a bit too much. It's like I'll probably mention to you, like a wall of sound, a bit fake, too many layers and, and before you know it, you sort of, it doesn't sound right, loses its energy.
It's overproduced.
Yeah.
It's overproduced. Honestly, like I'm like the ultimate Striper fan. They were one of the inspirations for me playing. It was the first metal concert I ever went to as a 13-year-old. I saw Striper at the Odeon in Chicago, man. I'm like, I'm going to do that, and, as the Lord blessed in my later years, I've become friends with Oz and he ended up playing with us on our song Hands for War. If I could ride into the heaven, the princes tremble at your name alone. Train my hands for war, rise up in me, and show me what's worth dying for. Train my heart for war, reveal in me exactly what's worth living for. On the debut album, which for me, man, that was a big deal. I don't get starstruck. Like I said, I've got lots and lots of famous friends. To me, they're just like anybody else. They're just friends, right? But I got a little starstruck when Oz wanted to play on our stuff because he was the guy. Like he was the dude that, when I first started playing, I wanted to be like, as a kid and stuff. So to have that come full circle and have him want to play on my song, I was just mind blown by that. And when he sent me his tracks from Vegas, I got him at about midnight. He sent me the files and stuff, and I'm like trying to place them into the song, and I'm listening to him, and I'm like literally having a meltdown moment. I'm like, oh my God, Oz Fox is playing a solo on my song, So I'm freaked out, but it's just, I kind of attribute that to just God being good to me, man. I went from that 13-year-old kid watching this guy in an arena to having him play on my song, just how everything kind of came full circle, which was awesome. But like I said, man, I was way into Striper. I used to air band to the Yellow and Black Attack and Soldiers Under Command with brooms before I even know how to play guitar and stuff, just acting it out. And, but one of the knocks that I would say, with Striper was they went through a period of years where Michael has a tendency to be a perfectionist to a fault. Mm. And I understand that because I'm a perfectionist, and you kind of have to be a producer. But Michael can be a perfectionist to a fault. Like he likes perfection. Mm. He likes the most pristine tones on everything, perfectly clean and clear and everything. And I think it kind of got through a season there where it did a disservice to Striper because their album sounded sterile. You sounded like you were listening to it in an operating room or something. Just there's no dirt in it. It didn't feel raw anymore, like Soldiers, Yellow and Black Attack, and all that. And I'm kind of glad because it seems like this new record, they kind of put the dirt back in it. The bass got brought up. There's a little growl on the bass, and it just sounds a little bit more raw and grimier than some of their previous albums. And I was kind of pleased with that, to hear Striper get that back. It kind of brought the balls back to it, Plus it's a little heavier.
Yeah, definitely.
But, there's one thing that I said to you before, less is more. Don't overthink it. Don't overdo it. I had a song the other day. I kept adding these like lead melody lines to it. And the riff was pretty dope. I was digging the riff, but I kept putting these parts because I wanted to add these layers of melody over it. And it's like, it sounded good, but I'm like, is this really adding to it? Because literally this riff stands on its own and I could continue to pile stuff on top of it. And it's actually taking away from that head bobbing catchiness of the riff. So I'm just like, delete, and got rid of it. I
suppose it's easy. I suppose it's easy to lose your way in the studio. Not that I would know, but to think it sounds good, and then like, so submersed in what you're doing, and then you come out and it's committed to vinyl well, it's not vinyl much anymore, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden it's something that you didn't even remember, in the studio. I suppose it's easy to do that, to get lost in those layers and stuff.
Well, as an artist, you don't know when to stop sometimes. Yeah. As a creator and an artist, I hear this, about people that are painters, they're creating these works of art and stuff, and you have to know when to step away from the canvas. Definitely. And at some point you have to step away and say, okay, that's enough. And that's hard to do when you're a perfectionist, because you want to keep adding colors and flavors and everything else to it. And sometimes it gets super counterproductive. Definitely. And there are things, little tricks that I've learned along the way of, just adding dirt back into the mix because, digital recording is so clean. It's so perfect that you kind of lose that old school tape sound, that growl that's in, the drum tracks and bass tracks, that it's almost inaudible, but you feel it. You know what I mean? Like when you go back and listen to, these old albums and stuff, it's there, and so I'll do things to intentionally put it back in. I'll literally over distort like a compressor or EQ, in the mastering process to create this little bit of dirt and distortion in the mix. It's inaudible, but it just kind of brings that back into it.
And it brings the energy.
I'll do it intentionally.
Energy as well. That's what it brings to it. Brilliant.
Because you're dealing with these sterile, clean, perfectly sounding tracks, and everything sounds pristine, man. But that's not what metal's about. You want to feel like you sweat and got a little dirt on you while you're listening to it.
I'm glad you mentioned Oz Fox being on your debut album. Have you got any special guests coming on the new one?
We do. We got some stuff working. I don't know if I'm at liberty to say yet. It's not 100%. One of them is a world-class vocalist. His wife's had some medical issues and stuff. So, and with COVID and everything, we're hoping it's going to be able to happen on this record. But I wrote a specific song. It's called "Kill the Messenger." It's kind of about the cancel culture thing,
Oh, yeah.
that it's specific for this world-class vocalist and Ray to actually knock it out of the park together. So
nice.
they're supposed to each sing a verse and then kind of sing together on the choruses and stuff. So we're hoping that's going to happen. I don't know if you're familiar with the band Jerusalem. They're a Swedish band.
No, I haven't heard of them, mate. A lot of stuff, good stuff coming out of Sweden, without a doubt.
Oh yeah, well, Jerusalem came out in the 70s. They were kind of the European godfathers of Christian rock music. Okay. Very European sounding, obviously, but Ulf Christensen, their singer, has been kind of like a spiritual papa to me. Just a great mentor and advisor to me over the years and stuff. And I'm wanting to put him on something. He's agreed to do something, with us. So I'm wanting that to happen. There's some other people that we're probably going to get in there. I will say this much. You talked about Oz. My heart really goes out to him and his wife, Annie, right now, because he's currently in the process of having brain surgery to remove some tumors. I don't know if that's happening this week or not. I don't know. They keep saying it's happening.
Yeah,
so
I know. Yeah.
I don't know if it's happened yet or if it's in the process of happening. It's been a little, they've been off the grid a little bit about it, but man, I know from talking to him personally and just, what I've heard, there is a risk of him losing his hearing from the surgery and also losing the use of his arm. Yeah. So, he was a bit terrified that he was going to lose his ability to play. Which not only is heartbreaking in the sense of, losing that ability of doing what you love, but it's also his main source of income. That's been his career. So, I'm praying and hoping that everything comes out perfect with that. Yeah, I would hate to see something happen. So very hopeful that everything goes perfect with these surgeries.
Definitely, mate. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's been, like you said, it's been a bit unclear when the actual surgery is, and I can understand that. You know what I mean? But yeah, I'm waiting to hear. I'm on tender hooks as well. Hopefully everything will go fine. I think he's less worried about the hearing because you can balance out. Apparently, he's more worried about, like you said, his arm or something like that would be worse.
Yeah, well, he's pretty much deaf anyway.
After all them years, I suppose. Yeah.
No, seriously, we had this conversation, and like if I wasn't talking directly at him, if I was talking from the side, he wasn't hearing me. Which, when you've been touring that long with stage volumes that loud and stuff, he basically told me that Michael's made him deaf. Michael likes it loud, like super loud on stage, and he said I have to wear the inner ears now. Not so that I can hear, but so that I can get the volume lower because Michael's stage volume coming out of the monitors literally is deafening.
Well, that's metal for you, mate. Isn't it?
That's a dude I would love to collaborate with some days, Michael Sweet. I mean, he's such a creative, prolific writer. That's my thing. I love playing guitar and everything, and to get the pats on the back, for guitar playing and everything. That's all good, but I think of myself as a songwriter. That's where I really I love to write. I love to create. That's what gets my juices flowing, and Michael's very much that way. He's just constantly writing something. Oh, yeah. I would love to collaborate with that guy someday.
Well, he definitely likes collaborating, mate. He likes collaborating without a doubt. So perhaps that will come to fruition one day. Hopefully.
Who knows? It worked out with Oz. So
yeah, I look forward to that. Mate, if it does happen. Your album, have you got a title for it?
Yeah. I mean, right now I think we've settled on The Feed.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
The Feed. And what the title track is talking about, how we're all jacked into the feed. We're being force fed our information. We're being taught what to think, how to feel. If you step outside a line, you're corrected, So basically the whole concept of it is, we're all logged in and jacked into this feed that's feeding us, everything. And if we buck it, we're taught how to think, to feel and everything. And if we buck it, man, we're immediately corrected, Yeah, so the whole concept is kind of going around that idea. And we've got some album cover art that's been worked on and stuff that looks pretty cool. It's got people literally like hardwired into their cell phones. They're holding their cell phones, and there's like these fiber optics going into their arms and stuff. So it's going to be pretty cool.
Do you know what's amazing, man? And I'm glad you said about your cover art, because even though not a lot of people get to buy an album anymore, but it does enough make a difference. And I think, just to take an example, and I know we're going off subject a bit, the new Joel Holtra's 13 album. I don't know if you've heard that.
I haven't heard it yet. No.
The cover, it's very simple, the cover work, but just to look at that while it's playing, it just brings, for some reason, it brings so much more to the music. It's a brilliant album, brilliant musicians, but it just brings that extra part of it. And I think it's so important to have good cover art.
That's coming back. I think it's one of the reasons why vinyl is relaunched, in such a big way, man, because back in the day, we would just sit there and we'd look at the cover and while we're listening and we're reading through the credits and the lyrics and looking at all the pictures, and we'd wear those things out like a book. Yeah. And I think a whole generation kind of missed that opportunity, with the digital thing. And I think that there's a rebirth of hunger for that, that it's part of the magic of an album wasn't just the music, it was the whole overall experience,
Definitely, mate. That's excellent. I like to have an actual title. That it's good to have a title. But release date, mate. I know we've spoken about this quite a while ago. You're thinking about releasing this a little bit differently. Is that still on the cards, or?
Yeah, it may be so. What we want to do, and it was kind of idea I came up with, because content is king nowadays. I mean, if you stop releasing content, you kind of disappear off the radar. You probably know that, doing your show and your reviews and stuff, is that if you don't continue to put out regular content, people will forget about you, very quickly. And so one of the things we thought about was releasing the album in 3 parts. So doing basically a series of digital EPs of 4 or 5 songs a piece, and then finally package the full thing as we release the last third of the album, package it for a physical release at that point. But that way people every few months are getting a new batch of songs, a new batch of material and videos and that kind of stuff. So the content is continuing to come out over the course of 6 or 8 months time.
It's a great idea.
I think that that, and we can finish, we could finish the album. That's the other thing, with all the delays with COVID and travel restrictions and all that stuff. The original plan was to get Ray and our new guitar player, Jeff, to come down to Mexico and have them, do their recording down here because they're in Florida. So they're a 45-minute plane flight to Cancun from there. So it's actually closer than coming up to Kentucky for them to come here. And it's a bit of a retreat. We can go track all day and then go fishing for a few hours or something like that. And Ray loves the fish. But, that was the idea. But now, with all the new travel restrictions and stuff, you have to be tested going back home, and then you have to quarantine for 10 days. And if anybody has a career type of job, they can't just take 10 extra days off, to quarantine. No. So that's kind of limited their ability to come down now, until that eases up. I think we might be on a bit on hold, unless I go to Florida and quarantine with them for 10 days.
Exactly.
Start tracking. But so I mean, basically what's happened is the process is, I'm doing a lot of the songwriting, and I do write all the lyrics and the melodies and all that. And it's not because Ray doesn't. It was a decision that was made early on with Deny the Fallen, because Ray's default is to go back to kind of more that Dio, Jeff Tate kind of style in his writing. So in order to kind of combat that, he was like, you just write all the lyrics and melodies, and
no, it's worked out great though, man. I mean, it's great to hear him, because I think I only listened to Sacred Warrior not long ago anyway. And that was the first thing I thought of. That sounds like Jeff Tate, as most people would have done. But it's great to hear him singing in your band. Completely. Completely different, but what a great voice! What a great voice, though, man, and showing that different style. Absolutely brilliant. It's really cool, actually, what you said about the way you're thinking of releasing this, because it really suits the way that people listen to music now, anyway, doesn't it? You know,
it still gives them the physical product.
Yeah.
The end result is a physical, you know, CD or, you know, vinyl. So they still have that. But the other thing that we're actually thinking about too is breaking it up in thirds and treating it like, you know, 3 EPs that are all a part of one. So what we'll do is come up with separate cover ideas for and titles for each third of it, and then package it all as the feed. Yeah. So it gives people, you know, 3 different pieces of art, you know, and all that. So just kind of make it an experience, like they're kind of traveling through the process of finishing this record with us.
It reminds me of I think the band I'm thinking of is Pantera did something like that with their EPs. Not Pantera, Down. Sorry, the band Down. Down. They did that a few. I think something happened and they ain't doing them anymore. But they released a couple of really cool EPs. That's a good idea. I love the way they did that. So it's a great idea. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a little outside the box, but you know, this band's never been inside the box. So.
Oh man, we talked about Ray's vocals. You ain't a bad vocalist yourself, are you?
I try. I try.
So, I mean, you did some vocals on the first album. What about this one?
Yeah, see, that was the thing that wasn't planned. You know, I was always intending to sing backups, you know, to Ray, and obviously I developed a growl vocal type of vocal thing where we're adding a few punchlines here and there, just, you know, to add color and kind of bring that you know, color into the palette, you know, a little bit. But because of the fact that I write all of the lyrics and the melodies and stuff, I have to pre-track them.
Yeah.
So I do all, and you've heard, you know, some of the pre-tracking where I've actually sang, you know, the demo versions for Ray to work on his parts off of. Well, what we realized is when Ray started reproducing them and stuff, we started doing some layering and then kind of questioning and answering type of effects where we would leave my line in there and then he would sing a line and we'd kind of back and forth. And it accidentally became probably the most notable part of the sound is the fact that our 2 voices work extremely well together. Like it adds a whole nother element, you know.
Definitely.
So we experimented with it a lot on the first record. When we realized that was a thing, now it is a thing. So we write that, you know, it's being written that way, you know, for me to do, you know, so essentially there are 2 lead vocalists in the band. He's just doing, you know, 75% of the lead vocals, but I am doing some where it's actually benefiting the song.
That's great. I mean, if anyone wants to check out Jonathan on his fully vocals across the whole song, you did a cover version, didn't you, mate, of Sledgehammer, Peter Gabriel. Sledgehammer. This will be my testimony. Yeah. Yeah. Show me around your fruitcake. 'Cause I will be a
Yeah, I did. That was I was having a bored weekend. I'd been here in Mexico tracking Deny the Fallen demos, you know, for weeks on end, and I felt like I needed to get some distance. So I'd always loved that song.
Man, I love your version, man. I love it because
thank you, but I'd always loved that song. I just thought that would be a cool you know, metal song. And I had no idea that Leo from Frog Leap Studios had already done a version of it. So when I realized that, I'd already done my version and it sounds nothing like his version. So it didn't really, you know, but it was never meant to be like a thing like I want this to blow up or explode or anything. I just purely did it for the fun of it. And it was cool. It was a good time. And
I'll tell you what I like about it.
I did it over a weekend.
What I like about it is you kept the feel of the song. You know, I mean, you haven't. People can come along and totally change the feel of the song, so it keeps that exact same feel, but obviously with those heavy guitars and your vocals on it. Just, I think it's great, man, and a really cool video as well, I think, because it sort of went along them sort of lines as the, you know, the original video, but with your own little bits.
It sounds very like drop tuned and low, and, you know, kind of that low metal drop tuning type of sound. But what I actually did was I flipped out parts. So parts that on the original track, it's in the exact same tuning. I didn't change the tuning at all. Everything is exactly the same as the original. So it didn't change that element to it, but it sounds very low.
It does. Yeah.
And what I did was I flip-flopped instruments. So what I created guitar riffs based around the bass part, and then I replaced the bass part with guitar riffs. You see what I'm saying? So it's you know, I flip-flopped them, you know, where the guitar is doing the bass part and the bass is doing the guitar part. And it's just, you know, it allowed it to get that low tone because it's, you know, it's like lower and groovier. And it added some chunk to it.
Where can people catch that, mate? Where can they get hold of that?
Honestly, it's on YouTube. Obviously the video's on there. I think it may be, by now it should be available on all the, you know,
streaming
iTunes and all that stuff. Yeah. You would just look it up under the name Glory of Kings, which is what I release all my solo music under. It's kind of, you know, I've got one of the more common names, you know, John Johnson, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a common name. So I figured that I need some name that's, you know, different than that to put my solo material out under. So that's what I put it under. So you can look up Glory of Kings, and you should be able to find it under that.
It's a great version, man. I love it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave a link under this video. People can check it out straight off from YouTube, if that's all right.
Awesome.
Just tell us about anything else you're doing, mate. Because obviously you're a busy man. What else have you been doing?
Wow. So for anybody that didn't know, I have a side project band with Tiago D'Souza. He's probably most known for his band Hand of Fire, which is a straight up thrash band out of San Francisco. And actually Juan Ortega, who produced a lot of the like Exodus and Testament records and all that. I mean, the guy's absolutely a legend producer. He produced their first album, Hand of Fire's first album. I think it was like the Christian Metal Album of the Year a few years back. He's also in a band with Dale Thompson from Bride called Perpetual Paranoia, which is kind of Dale Thompson's thrash project. But anyway, Tiago and I got together 2 years ago, and we met online, just started talking and respected each other and like, hey, let's do something together. Well, that turned into releasing an album 5 months later. We started sending ideas to each other, and just it happened so fast and so organically, and it sounds nothing like anything that either one of us have ever done. It's heavy, it's brutal, it's melodic, it's rhythmic, it's extremely different. It's impossible to classify in the same way Deny the Fallen is, but you just step up the heaviness about, 20 notches.
That's great.
But the project, the band's called Godman.
Yeah.
And our debut album is called Hypostatic Union.
Yeah.
And you should be able to get it. I think the CD is available on the website called boonsoverstock.com. It's on Bombworks Records. But boonsoverstock.com, you can get it there. But I believe the digital version is available, anywhere you can download music. Right. It should be available. But yeah, it's extremely heavy. It's heavy in a way like Slipknot's heavy. It's like just very heavy riffing, but still got a lot of melody to it.
Yeah.
If you can imagine like mixing, Pantera with Alice in Chains, there's this very vocal quality to it, but also very heavy, brutal quality to it. So
it's great, man.
But yeah, it's called Godman, and we're planning to do another album too this year, which if it happens like the last one happened, we'll probably have it done in 3 months. I mean, seriously, it's like that thing ignited and went quick. We did it over the holidays through the winter and stuff, and man, he's a prolific dude. He was sending me riffs all the time. Like once he knows there's a green light on something, man, he's on it. Yeah. So he's just sending me riff after riff after riff, and I'm just tearing his riffs apart, saying, okay, this part needs to be a verse, this part needs to be a chorus, and rearranging, and then I'll put my parts on it. And us playing together, it just created a hybrid sound. It was really, really unique.
Something else for everyone to check out as well then, man. That's great. Absolutely.
Yeah, so
great.
Glory of Kings, that's, all my solo stuff that I'm doing, singularly by myself. And then Godman, which is heavy.
Yeah.
it makes Deny the Fallen sound like, Def Leppard. But it's not thrash, man. It's really hard to classify. It's different.
No, that's great, man. Well, I'll leave a link to that as well. People can check out. This will be on YouTube as well, won't it? So if anyone wants to check out,
we've got a few videos. I think all the songs are available on YouTube. But if you can look the whole album up on there. If you look under Godman Topic, I think that's where you find the whole record. But our first video release was for a song called Reset. So if you look up Reset, that'll kind of give you a good idea what the whole record's about.
It screams out for you. It's crying out, screaming in silence, vanity and pain, just in them.
So.
Thanks, mate. Oh, listen, it's been a pleasure talking to you. It really has.
Man.
And are you going to come on again once you maybe when you release the first bit of music?
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah.
You can come on just before or just after.
Yeah, we'll get on here and debut some of it and stuff and let you play some of it.
No, that's brilliant, mate. Well, listen, it's been an honor having you on, mate. It really has.
Yeah, man. It's an honor talking to you. And like I tell you privately all the time, man, I'm real proud of you. Like you're just kind of exploding and getting out there and getting notoriety. What you do, man, I don't know if you recognize this or not, but like you're yourself, but you're very unique, and everything you do seems to have like a spirit of excellence on it. And I really appreciate that about you. And I think people are taking notice of what you do because it does have that air of excellence and professionality to it, even though it's just you talking and, you have a natural knack for it, man. And you're real good at doing your reviews and interviews and stuff. So
oh man,
I'm excited to see what happens, to see when famous artists are taking notice of your work and stuff like that. I always grin and be like, yeah, man, he deserves it. So
the thing is, I'm just to do things like this with you, and I just love it. I'm just happy as it is now. If it doesn't do anything else, I'm happy. But I love talking.
You gotta do it for the love of it, and that's why it's genuine. Yeah. And that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. It comes across as very genuine. You could tell that you love music, that you know music. When you're giving a review or an opinion on something, it's very knowledgeable and thoughtful. And the points that you pick out are very much things that I would pick out about things. I'm like, yeah, man, that's exactly, what I would say. My thing is like, I've been asked to do reviews for different shows and stuff. Will you do some album reviews? I'm like, no, man, I'll end up hated. Because I'll be honest. You know what I mean? Especially like Christian metal stuff. Because, as we talked about before, I feel like, the whole Christian metal scene is at an all-time low when it comes to production quality because there are no budgets. Nobody has real record companies in the Christian metal market because there's not a huge market for it. Nobody can make any money at it. So the bands are self-producing. And more often than not, the productions come out sounding awful and they're just not doing the music any good. And the development isn't there and it's just not done with excellence. And that's something that's extremely important to me. And so if somebody asked me to review a record, I'd have to be honest. And I felt like I would just be tearing these albums apart. And I'm like, I just can't do it.
Yeah, to tell you the truth, mate, I mean, I'm a bit similar to you. I mean, I don't review everything because if an unknown band or someone who, is trying to make their way and they send me something and I don't like it, I won't review it because I just think it's unfair, But if there's a big band out there that bring out an album and I don't like it, then I'll review it and say, because,
this is trash.
Yeah, because they can probably afford it. But these bands that are trying to make
deserves to be called trash because you should know better.
Exactly. So I just basically won't do it because I think it's unfair and I don't want to, diss the
You don't want to like hinder somebody's career that's just.
Yeah, I'm not saying I would because I'm, what I mean, but even one person saying they don't like it is enough sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, bad reviews, man. It's kind of like the stock market. You start getting bad news, man, and your stock starts dropping fast. And
Exactly.
it's one thing that I'm extremely thankful for, that we had, you know, a slew of very positive reviews off the debut album, which I was expecting us to get trashed some because how different it was. Honestly, I figured there was going to be an attrition rate, but we got, you know, 99.9% overwhelmingly positive reactions. But I think one of that too, and you know this because I've kind of asked you to be one of these people. I have what's called, you know, my circle of ears, people that I trust their ear, I trust their opinion, and I'm getting reviews from these people all throughout the process. You know, I want to know what seems to be working, what's not working so much, you know, and kind of seeing if I'm on the right page, or, you know, if I'm on the right path with certain things, especially if I'm experimenting, if I'm getting weird with it, I want to know, you know, whether it's too weird, you know. But, you know, I think that's one of the reasons why we have been able to up the level of excellence a bit. And that's one of the things that we want to do. We want to kind of raise the banner of excellence, especially in Christian metal. It's like, just because we're self-producing and we're self-funding and all that kind of stuff doesn't mean you can't do it well. Take the time. And if you don't know, find somebody that does know, or educate yourself, do something to make it great, you know, because if not, don't bother. Don't waste your time, you know, if you're not going to do it with excellence.
Well, man, listen, I'm really looking forward to the feed. The feed, it's called, isn't it? Coming out. Hopefully we have some new music soon. I'm really getting excited now. So just let me know if you get a date together. Obviously, we'll see it online and that. But
yeah, we're hoping, you know, maybe fall or winter. You know, I would have loved to have had it out already, but you know, with the travel limitations and stuff, I just don't see anything moving very quickly. Even though, like, you know, pretty much the whole record's written. I mean, we've got, you know, the majority of the material, but I never stop writing. So if I get something better, I'll just start replacing out songs or adding, you know, B-side material to the album. But yeah, pretty much the majority of it's written. You know, we may add and subtract a few songs here and there, but we're hoping later in the year, you know, at least for the first batch of songs, maybe in the fall.
Oh, great. Looking forward to it, man. I'll be reviewing them. Don't worry about that. All right.
Cool, man. It's awesome to talk to you face to face. Finally, I know we've done a lot of typing,
yeah,
phone typing and stuff, but yeah, it's good to have a one-on-one.
Definitely. Technology's there's some good things about technology, mate, for sure.
Yeah, man.
So
yeah, I guess if we're all going to be locked up like I am on the beach here, you know, hopefully my scenery warmed you a bit.
Yeah, next time we speak, I'm going to get a scenery. It's going to be better than yours, right?
You're going to be like in a volcano or something.
Yeah.
So mine's warmer than yours. No, seriously, you have a standing open invite whenever I'm in Mexico.
Oh,
you know, you hop a plane, get a cheap flight, which they are cheap right now. I will tell you, flights are going for rock bottom right now because, you know, these airlines are desperate. But yeah, if you can make your way across the pond, man, you got a place to stay.
Well, if I do it soon and they lock me up when I come back, I'm locked up now anyway. It doesn't make a difference.
What the heck's the difference, right? It's like you're going to be locked up. At least you'll have a tan.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man, listen, it's been a pleasure. It really has. Thanks for speaking to me.
Man.
All right?
Yeah, man, anytime. I
And
enjoyed
speak
it.
Speak soon.
You're talking me, chasing me like a wild. You're not my friend. No, you'll bring down. You're talking me.